Have you ever made something with your hands and felt a spark, like it was more than just a project? Maybe a sense of peace, pride, or even purpose? For many pagans, crafting is more than a skill. It's a sacred act, a way to connect with the gods, the ancestors, and the magic of creation itself. Today, we're talking about what it means to make with intention and to honor the sacred through the things we create. Welcome back to Fireside Frith, a hearth for Norse pagans and the curious alike. I'm Susanna Wandering Star, a kindred leader in local Githya, here to share stories, wisdom, and real talk about living our path today. Whether you're a longtime heathen or just curious about Norse spirituality, you're in the right place. This time, I made sure my microphone was on because I've already recorded this podcast and I was about to go about my day doing other things. But when I went to hit the edit button, it was like, there's no sound. So this is going to be take 2. Hopefully it works this time. Anyways, let's get into it. This is going to be a shorter episode today. I feel like I can talk about crafting for hours upon hours upon hours. It took a lot of effort for me to shrink it down to a digestible podcast episode. This one won't be as long, but it's okay because we're doing weekly episodes now, so you'll definitely get your fill. If you're enjoying Fireside Frith and want to learn more about the True community, you can find us online at theosatruecommunity.com. There you'll find resources on Norse paganism, information about our clergy and community programs, upcoming events, and ways to get involved. Whether you're walking this path alone or with a kindred, the True community is here to help you find connection, education, and frith among like-minded folk. Now let's get back to the episode. Part 1, historical context. In Norse mythology, crafting isn't just a skill. It's a sacred, cosmic force. The act of creation itself shapes the world, bridges realms, and keeps chaos in check. The dwarves, elves, and even certain gods were seen as divine makers whose work held real power and purpose. Disclaimer, you guys know that I'm American and I will pronounce things probably wrong, so don't at me. I'm doing my best. So, the dwarves are the most famous of these artisans. They are born from the flesh of the giant Ymir and dwelling deep beneath the earth in places like Svartalfheim and Nidavellir. Their craft is unmatched, and many of the gods' most important treasures come from their forges, like Mjölnir, Thor's hammer that never misses its mark, Gungnir, Odin's perfect spear, Draupnir, the golden ring that multiplies itself every 9 nights, Sif's golden hair, spun to replace what Loki cut, Gullinbursti, Freyr's shining boar, Skidbaldnir, the ship that can fold up into a pouch, and Gleipnir, the impossible ribbon that bound Fenrir. Each of these items carries magic, intention, and story, proof that creation itself was a sacred act of power. But crafting wasn't limited to dwarves alone. The elves, like the smith Voland, also held deep creative magic. Frigg, Queen of Asgard, spun the threads the Norns used to weave into fate. And Odin, in his endless quest for wisdom, discovered the runes, symbols that connect craft, magic, and destiny. At its heart, crafting in Norse myth represents balance, the tension between chaos and order, creation and destruction. Every crafted item serves a purpose in maintaining that harmony. To shape something from raw materials was to mirror the gods themselves, to take part in the act of creation that began the cosmos. So through myth, we see that crafting wasn't just background decoration in the stories. It was world-shaping magic. Every forged spark, every woven thread carried meaning and power. But this reverence for creation didn't end with the gods and dwarves. It carried down into the mortal world too. In Norse and Germanic culture, the act of making, whether through smithing, weaving, carving, or rune work, was just as sacred. These weren't ordinary skills. They were living reflections of divine acts of creation we see in the myths. let's take a look at how craftsmanship showed up in the daily lives and spiritual practices of our ancestors. For the Norse and Germanic peoples, crafting wasn't just a trade, it was a calling. Every maker had a vital role in the well-being of the community, and their work carried spiritual weight. The line between art, function, and magic was thin and often non-existent. As we know from other books, articles, and discoveries, the ancient Germanic people, the Norse people, ancient Scandinavians, they didn't have a barrier between the spiritual world and the physical world. Just like that aspect of their worldview, that's the same with art and function and magic. They all kind of belong together. Anywho, smiths were among the most respected individuals in any settlement. Working with fire and metal was seen as an act of transformation. Turning raw ore into tools, weapons, and treasures mirrored the mythic creation of order from chaos. A skilled smith wasn't just shaping metal, they were shaping fate. The forge was a sacred space, a place of both creation and danger, where sparks danced like offerings to unseen powers. Weavers held a similar kind of quiet authority. Weaving was never simply domestic, it was symbolic. The loom echoed the cosmic threads spun by the Norns, and many sagas connect women's textile work with prophecy and fate. To weave was to tell a story, to give form and pattern to the unseen. In many households, the weaving room was a place of magic and memory, a way to record lineage, devotion, and care. Carvers and rune makers brought another layer of sacred craftsmanship. Though runes could have been just letters, we can also speculate that they were living symbols of power, carved into wood, bone, or stone to bless, protect, or bind. A rune worker understood that each stroke carried weight. Whether marking a memorial stone or inscribing a talisman, they were in conversation with the divine forces that shaped the world. And you can see this with the burials, how certain people would have staves, like the vulvas would have staves with the runes carved on them, whether they were marking a passing of time or if they had some sort of invocation put on them or any sort of magical prayer or what have you. There's so many ways that runecraft was spiritual and artistic. Each of these crafts, smithing, weaving, carving, reflected a belief that the act of creation was holy as much as it was necessary. Because if we think about smithing, you need weapons, you need armor. When you have a physical combat society, you need those things. But they also saw as weaving and telling their stories through art and the textiles. It's a way of preserving and honoring your ancestors. And then with the carving, that was very much a necessity because, like I said earlier, the spiritual and the physical realm, they were the same realm. They didn't see it as separate. So to make something well was to honor both one's ancestors and the gods who gifted humanity the skill to create. Craftsmanship was a devotion in motion, a bridge between the maker, the material, and the sacred. Part 2. The sacred act of making. When we talk about crafting as a sacred practice, we're really talking about intention, the energy and awareness that we bring to what we create. The difference between a hobby and a ritual is often the heart we put behind it. So in the Norse worldview, everything is connected through the web of wyrd. This is the web of cause, consequence, and the meaning that binds all things. When you sit down to make something, whether it's a piece of clothing, a tool, or a piece of art, you're adding new threads to that web. Every motion, every choice of material or design carries a little bit of your story. The act of making becomes a dialogue between the creator, the material, and the outcome. The material teaches us patience. The craft will teach humility. The finished piece carries the essence of time, place, and spirit that went into it. It's a living thing, woven with your intention, your energy, and your wyrd. Think about it this way. Leatherwork connects us to the animal, to sacrifice and endurance. Each cut and stitch honors what was given and transforms it into something that will serve again. Metalwork is the dance of fire and willpower, melding strength and precision into form. Woodcraft calls us to listen to the grain and growth, to work with life that's already there rather than against it. Fiber arts like weaving, knitting, and sewing embody patience and pattern, echoing the cosmic threads spun by the Norns themselves. And this isn't the only way you can create, obviously. I mean, there's song, there's dance, there's cooking, there's D&D character creation, storytelling in any capacity. There's so many ways that we can create that are not just the things I outlined here. Like I said, this podcast could go on forever. I could make a whole podcast about creativity and spirituality together. But I just want this to be a little more digestible. When we create with this kind of awareness, craft becomes more than expression. It becomes sort of a communion. We're not just making things, we're participating in the same sacred rhythm that our ancestors did and shaping something with our hands and our hearts. Part 3, Modern Heathen Application. So how do we bring that same sense of sacredness into what we make today? The truth is, you don't need a loom, a forge, a temple. You don't need any of that. You just need your intention and what you want to create. Start by setting your space and your mindset. Before you begin a project, you can take a deep breath and ground yourself. If you feel the need to, you can light a candle, you could say a few words, or simply pause and focus on what you're creating and why. In doing that, you shift from I'm making something to I'm a part of something. When I do this, it's in the form of a to-do list where if I just look at my project, like this one that's over here in the background, it is leather that has been dyed. It needs to be put together. I need to make a list of things that I can cross off because my ADHD gets the little happiness chemicals when I cross something off the list. So I put every step on there, but that's just what I do. So I need to antique it. I need to put the gold paint on the symbols because it is a religious thing that I'm crafting over there. It's got a bunch of bind runes on it. But anyway, so the bind runes are going to be gold. There's painting involved. There's antiquing involved. There's riveting. There's grommeting. There's all these steps that I need to do. So when I go to work on that, setting the space, getting ready for it, is I make the to-do list of all the steps that I need to do. That way I can stay on track. Other than that, because of my ADHD, I also set a Pomodoro timer and I'll listen to music or podcasts and with that clicking just faintly in the background so that I can hear, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be doing something. But that's something that just helps me because I need it. That's my little meditation beforehand, that I set the intention, like I'm going to work on these steps. The next step will be offering gratitude to your materials. Whether it's leather, metal, wood, or thread, or anything else, remember that each has its own story, if it came from the land, from life, or from someone's labor. Taking a moment to thank those materials, out loud or silently, acknowledges that connection. You're not just shaping them, they're shaping you too. I do this, and it's kind of like just a quick touch. When I work with leather or fur, I put my hands on the material, and I get excited to shape this animal into something else that will be lasting and make someone else happy and bring their vision to life in a wearable fashion, in a way that they can feel whatever it is they want to feel from the materials. I don't always put it in my heart to say a full sentence, but I make sure that I have that little connection with the animal first, or with whatever it is. Linen is made from plants. Cotton is made from plants. Obviously, fur, leather comes from animals. Those are all natural materials because I only work with natural materials. But that doesn't mean you can't do something similar when creating with unnatural materials, should you want to do that. It's the same thing like when I brew mead, I have some sort of inner monologue where I express gratitude for the bees that made the honey, or the cow for its purpose being to create leather, or beef. I hope they use a whole cow. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, when it comes to stuff like that, I definitely, with the natural materials, I like to say a little something in my heart. Like I said, it's just like an instant, just when I touch it, I'm just like, yep, there it is. All right. the next step, you can also dedicate your work to the gods, to your ancestors, or to your community. In the Norse tradition, the act of giving and exchanging was sacred. So we know that blót, that gift for gift, it's very True 101, if you will. It's like one of the first things we learn about when we become Norse pagan. So dedicating a piece to Thor for strength, or Frigg for care, or to your ancestors for guidance, it weaves the act of creation into your spiritual path. And I'm not necessarily meaning that you're going to gift it to them as a sacrifice, but dedicate it to them. So if you make something and you want to wear it, if you want to make your own Mjölnir or whatever it is, and you dedicate it to whoever it is you want to dedicate it to, then you know when you wear that crafted item that you are with them, that you're with that dedication you gave to them, and in a sense, have them with you. It's pretty cool. And of course, crafting can be a form of community building. When we make gifts for others, create ritual tools to share, or collaborate on projects, we're doing more than just making things. We're weaving bonds. We're establishing frith. Those moments of shared creativity echo the old ways, when a village's well-being depended on the skill and care of its craftspeople. My kindred, we do an ornament exchange for Yule, and then we do different crafting activities throughout the year. With our ornament exchange, we don't always make the ornaments. Sometimes they're made, sometimes they are purchased. There's just every variety. It doesn't really matter, because the point is to do a gift exchange, but something that's not expensive. But when it comes to creating, you can totally have a craft night where you create these things that you want to do at the exchange. Something that we do forge nights. We have some brews and forge, and it's pretty fun. Then we also do mead making and brewing. So far, we've made some beer and mead and more mead. And that's also a community building, frith establishing group activity you can do. We really enjoy doing those, because if we only were to get together to do spiritual things, it's not always familiar. Because then if you only know somebody in the spiritual activity, then it's like, are you friends? I don't know. So we started doing these things as a way to get to know each other and to develop friendships and relationships. And so far, it's been pretty awesome. I think when you create together, even if it's mead or cooking or not something that's like wearable or tangible, something consumable, I think that making things together is a spiritual bonding activity for me anyways. As I've explained before, I've recorded this one twice now, so I don't know if I said it in this version of the episode or in different episodes. I see this sort of thing every day in my work. Here in this craft room workshop, this is my full-time job now, so I see it all the time where I'll be shaping leather, designing or sewing clothing, building props. There's always a moment where the work feels alive, where it becomes more than just a product, and it's a piece of a story of the self and of spirit, and that's where the sacred lives. One of my favorite experiences has been, I wore a dress and a lady was like, "Oh my gosh, where did you get it? I've been looking for a dress like that for my wedding." And I was like, "I made it." She asked, "Can you make it in white?" And I said, "Yeah, probably." So I made her this dress, and wedding dresses are very special as it is, but just seeing her face light up and the pictures she sent me of her in the dress, for the concept, so you guys can understand, she wanted this beautiful elven, covered in leaves kind of fantasy gown, like something that an elf in Lord of the Rings would wear. And that's exactly what she got, and that's what I made her. And every time I see her, she lights up and she's like, "Oh my gosh, she's the woman who made my dress." And, and just at that point, it's not, yes, the act of creating for me pays my bills. However, when I create and it makes that big of an impact in someone's life and they are just so happy about it. And the thing is that the dress, she also wanted it to be like, not just a wedding dress. She's like, "I don't want to just wear it on my wedding day. I want to be able to wear it again and again. I was like, oh yeah, totally. We can make this durable. I got you. It is such an awesome experience to be able to help someone bring their dreams to life. And I know that's not the reason why we all create, but for me, it's really putting someone in the shoes that they thought were impossible and making things happen that they thought were impossible. I love doing that. I love bringing someone's dreams to life, and that becomes sacred for me. Now, if she hated the dress, that would be also very spiritual for me, and I would be crushed, and I would hate myself, and I would consider getting an actual job, not just making things. You see what I mean? How I feel it all the time, the creating and the sacred, and honestly, keeping it sacred helps me stay on task. Because if I were to exercise dedicating things to different deities, since I value spirituality over activity, once you fuse them together, it can help you if you have ADHD and your brain works like mine, stay on task, maybe. We'll see. Moving on from my story, no matter what you make, whether you're painting, sewing, cooking, hammering out things in the garage, brewing, whatever it is, know that your hands are doing sacred work. Creation itself is a form of prayer. And when we craft with intention, we're not just preserving old traditions, we're continuing and living them. This week, I invite you to try something simple. Create with intention. Whether it's cooking, sewing, carving, or even writing, set aside a moment to dedicate that act as sacred. Notice how it feels different when you do. And if you'd like, share your sacred crafting story with our community. We're on Facebook at the Oz of True Community Facebook group. You can leave a comment on this podcast on Spotify or on our YouTube channel. You can also find us on other social medias at Fireside Frith Pod, or send me an email at podcast@theozatruecommunity.com. And if you'd like to become a charter member with us, go to www.theozatruecommunity.com and click the Become a Part of Our Community link. The membership is free, and you'll gain access to the Heathen Library Project once we launch, and the Ambassador Training course, which I've talked to in previous episodes, where I teach you all the things you need to know to set up building your own kindred. It teaches you how to build community. Next week, we'll dive into the mysteries of Seder and Galdr, Norse magical practices of weaving, chanting, and shaping fate itself. Thank you for joining me today. Send your experiences, questions, and stories to podcast@theozatruecommunity.com. My sources for this episode are Crafting as Ritual blog post by Rachel Henderson at www.llewellyn.com, Viking Craftsmanship, Art and Skill of the Norsemen by Hendrik Paul at www.battlemerchant.com, and of course, my personal experience. Until next time, may your hearth stay warm and your frith strong. This has been Fireside Frith from the Oz of True Community, where the flame never dies.